watch The Chosen. The scene plays out slightly differently in the television show, right? Peter picks they're walking through the field, and he plucks off a head of wheat, which I wouldn't have even thought to do, right? Clearly there's food inside the wheat. I understand that bit. But how do you get the food out? I didn't grow up around wheat. I understand how to get the food out of the sugar cane, but I'm fairly certain you don't just peel back a couple of layers of grass and bite into the center stalk, right? So he has Peter grab it, and he starts to do something to open up and get at the kernels, right? And Peter realizes, oh no, I've broken the Sabbath. It was a double knife edge for him, because part of the story is the reason why Peter was in the boat fishing was because he was fishing on the Sabbath, breaking the Sabbath. It's Peter showing he hasn't learned his lesson, but he realizes it, and he turns to the Lord. And that's when Jesus goes, it is permissible. And you see the excitement on the apostles' face, because they're actually starving, they're hungry. They haven't brought any food with them, right? The idea being that the Sabbath law was meant to protect something that was good, not prohibit something that was evil. Those are different things, right? Generally, we think of these things as a zero-sum game. If I'm protecting a good thing, it's because the opposite is a bad thing. Work, right? No. Work and leisure are both good things in proper proportion. In Egypt, there was a 10-day week with a half day. On the 10th day, there was a half day of rest. And the Lord considers this unjust and instructs the Israelites to work for 6 days and rest for the full day of the 7th. We're told that this is because this is how God created the world in the scriptures, right? But God didn't need to do it that way, right? So God chooses. Okay, we think of, like, for us, the story progresses. It starts at a certain point and develops and develops and develops, right? Not the way for God, right? God exists in eternity, all of time, all at one time. So he sees all of it. Obviously, he's creating the whole thing. There's no discovery for the Lord, meaning when the Lord chose to create the world in 7 days, or at least to tell us that's what he did, right? There's a little, there's a world in which God creates the world one way, and the story he communicates to us is a different story. Unimportant, right? God tells us he made the world in 7 days. Why? Because he wants to instruct the people to follow this 6 days of work, 1 day of rest thing. Because the rest is good, and the work is good. Not because work is bad and you've got to steal back as much rest as you can from it. Not because rest is bad, but you got to do it and the work is good. No. They are both good in their proper proportion. And when those things get out of alignment, that's when the wheels come off. But the Pharisees have made it more about the prohibition than about the protection. God said don't work. God said don't work. God said specific things. God said, do not boil a kid in its mother's milk, which probably most likely was some kind of divination ritual. And God forbids it, right? What God does not forbid is the blending of meat and dairy. But our Jewish brothers and sisters, in order to make sure that you've never accidentally served a child with his mother's milk, which statistically is impossible in our modern food supply. But, okay, it's not impossible. It's just incredibly unlikely, right? So God doesn't forbid cheeseburgers. But most of our very strictly observing Jewish brothers and sisters, they won't do that because of the small possibility, right? God did not forbid you from plucking grain to eat it on the Sabbath. What God forbids is you sending your day laborers into the field to harvest your grain while you sit back comfortably in your house on the Sabbath. That's what the protection is for. That those people get a day of rest. Those people get time to go spend with the Lord. Not that you can't unhitch your mule and let him have some water. That you wouldn't milk your cows, right? No. If there's things you need to do, go do them. And you can't not do those things. But if there's things you don't need to do, then don't do them.